Dear students in EU Kenkyu and EU Kenkyu Nyumon, welcome to our first online lecture in week 2. My name is Till Weber and I'm going to give you a talk in slow and easy to understand English on the EU, Introduction to EU Studies. What is it all about? Please try out, if I'm hard to understand, try out the CC captions. You can have English translations, but be careful. Sometimes it's nonsensical, but it has improved a lot recently. So let's get started with today's lecture. The European Union is a mass of 448 million people living in 27 countries. Here you see much of Europe is covered by the European Union, but not all European countries are members of the European Union. After World War II, when Europe was in ruins and ruined by the war, new ideas were needed for lasting peace and prosperity. These are some of the famous politicians, mostly from France, England, Germany to Italy, who contributed to creating the European Union in 1950, but that will be the topic of next week's lecture, not so much history today. The EU has its own symbols. You probably noticed when you picked up goods from the box we were kindly sent by the European delegation to Japan. The color is blue, and we have the European flag here in the center. You may be asking, is the number of stars changing? There is 27 members, but I only see 12 stars. No. The number is not changing. The number is always 12 stars. So this is set. The European Union has a motto, which is united in diversity. We are diverse. We are all different. We speak different languages. We come from different countries. We have different gender. We have different ideas. But in this European project, everybody should be united. Other symbols include the Europe Day on May 9th, historical day when the pre-runner of the European Union was founded in 1950. More about that next week. Then there is the money, the euro, more about that another time. And of course, the European Union also has an anthem. This is actually not a new anthem that would have been composed especially for the EU. No, it's one of the most famous pieces of music that have ever come out of Europe. Please listen to it. Well, I'm afraid it doesn't work. It's on YouTube. You have the link here. Please check it out. It doesn't work in this mode. It's Beethoven's Ode to Joy, the European hymn. That was a pleasant surprise. It worked after all. So Beethoven's Ode to Joy, All Men Will Be Brothers, is the idealistic musical motto of the European. The European Union is an organization that comprises 27 countries, and its inhabitants speak 24 official languages. Here you see the languages of Europe all listed up. The European Union in 2020 consists of, as I said, of 27 countries. It used to be 28, but last year the United Kingdom decided to leave the European Union. You still have a lot of countries remaining, and the initial block when the Union was first launched in 1957 is marked in green, then light green for countries that joined in the 70s, and so on and so forth. And here you see 2013, the last countries to join here, Croatia and Croatia in former Yugoslavia. And you also see the gaps. Switzerland is not part of the European Union. Here, other countries like Serbia, Kosovo, former parts of Yugoslavia, not part of the European Union. Norway isn't a part. And then we have Turkey, with whom the European Union has a very tricky relationship. Well, the reason, obviously, from 28 to 27, which was the first time the European Union actually got smaller, was the Brexit, Britain's exit after a referendum in 2016, and a long period of negotiations. Britain finally left. The current question is, there is a deal, but it doesn't work very well. So how will the future relationships between Britain and the rest of Europe be? I think it's not yet decided, and the corona pandemic actually delays acting on such policy matters. Very important is the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights. All countries have to agree to this, had to sign up. All EU activities must observe these six principles. These cannot be changed, these cannot be negotiated. One is dignity of all people, the freedoms of all people. People cannot be denied their freedoms. Equality, that goes equality between people from different countries, between people from different genders, also people of different sexual orientation, LGBTI, there should be no discrimination. Solidarity, which means that rich countries are to help poorer countries. Citizens' rights, if citizens in their country feel their government is violating their rights, they can take their case to a European court. And the European court can order national governments to treat their own citizens better, which is a huge thing, a huge progress, given that some countries don't deal with their own citizens very nicely. And then justice. Justice should be basically the same for everybody in the European Union. Let's have a look at the population. Now 448 million. The graph is pre-Brexit, so it's a bit old on the EU side, but you can see China and India have many more people, but the European Union has more people than Japan, Russia, and also more people than live in the United States. The surface area in 1,000 square kilometers, you see the European Union size. Britain left, so it's a little bit smaller now. It's actually fairly small. Only India and then Japan are. Japan is of course much smaller. The United States, China, Russia have much more space. So it's a very, well, Europe is a very densely populated continent. The size of the economy, there's some explanation in Japanese too. The GDP, gross domestic product, of countries. You see, after Britain left, China and the United States are slightly in front of the European Union. So the European Union holds 16% of the world economy. That's the easiest way to remember it. 16% of the world economy and money made belongs to the 27 countries of the European Union. In comparison, you have smaller countries, India, Japan, and so on and so forth. Of course, this doesn't yet say very much about how much every individual person earns, and that's, of course, much more important for us. If you look at the EU, the average income in Europe, in EU countries, and you set that at 100, you can see there's a few countries where the income is higher. On top of them is, of course, the United States, where people are richer. And then you see there are other countries. Japan and South Korea are very, very close to the European Union, but slightly less well off than Europe in general. And mind you, the EU includes rich and poor countries. If richer countries like the Netherlands or the Scandinavian countries, Germany, France, and so on, were individualized, they would move up this ladder towards the direction of the United States. Surface area, we can skip this. Sorry, we skip these. The European Union collects a lot of money. Actually, member countries have to give 1.05% of their gross national income. That means if a country has, the economy in a country makes $100 billion a year, $1.05 billion go to the European Union. And this makes up the EU budget, which stands at 157.9 billion euro at the moment. Here you have it in Japanese yen. Please, please try to read that large number. So the European Union has money, a lot of money of its own to use on its own purposes. How does the European Union use the money? The biggest chunk here, almost half, goes into policies that should encourage growth. So to stimulate the economies of all member countries by working together, by creating jobs, by making countries more competitive, better performing on the world stage. And also, a lot of money goes into regional development. Especially poorer countries often have less railway links, modern railway links. Roads are better, are worse, are fewer. There's infrastructural problems. Educational systems are not so good. And the European Union puts a lot of money into poorer countries to help them develop. Then the second big chunk here is sustainable growth and natural resources. Actually, that's two things. A lot of money goes to farmers, and that has also been criticized in Europe. To European farmers, the EU tries to have a farming policy that covers all countries, which is a good thing for consumers, because then we have access in Europe to farming products from 27 countries without paying import duties, keeping prices of vegetables, fruit, meat, fish, and so on fairly reasonable, at least cheaper than in Japan. The other chunk is environment. Obviously, climate change is progressing, and it's very, very important that we do something, we do more to preserve our natural environment. So the EU Green Deal, as it has been called since early last year, is underway at trying to improve the environment. And the other larger amounts of the EU budget go first into global Europe, which means regional development aid. Partners in Africa, in Asia, in South America get help. This is personnel costs. This is basically the salaries of the people who work for the EU. And then we have security, which is not very big. This is police cooperation, military cooperation, citizenship, and justice, like the European Court of Justice, of course, needs a budget as well. Another aspect of Europe is the money, the euro, a single currency for Europeans, but not for all Europeans. You can see here, blue countries, countries in blue have signed up, are using the euro, but some countries in yellow are not using the euro. So you can use it in many countries in Europe, but not everywhere. The euro, oh, there's something missing here. Yes, there it is. The advantages of the euro include that money doesn't have to be exchanged, which costs money. You don't have to go to a bank and exchange money. And the rates are always the same. They're not fluctuating. It can't happen that before you start your trip abroad, suddenly your currency drops by 10% and you have 10% less money on your hands. The rates are the same because it's the same currency. That leads to more choice and stable prices for consumers. Obviously, you can either buy something you want to have locally, or you can buy it in another country and have it sent to you. The prices are directly comparable, and it's often so that, for instance, if you want to buy a new car, it may be quite a bit, 3,000 yen, 3,000 euros more expensive in, say, Germany, but in a neighboring country, in Belgium, you can get the same car for 3,000 euros less. So you can buy it there and then drive it home. It's not very far. It's just a few hours extra drive. Of course, the internet helps to compare prices and to get bargains for consumers. And the money can be used everywhere in the euro area. You don't need to exchange any money. The coins, actually, I want to present them, or we want to present them in one class, in one time in class. The coins and the bills. They have one side with national symbols and the other side is a common image. We want to show them because the coins and the bills really show what cooperation in Europe can be about. Let's move on to the European Central Bank, which is in Frankfurt. You see this logo here. The president is a French lady. She's called Christine Lagarde. And what does the central bank, the European Central Bank, do? They are managing the euro. They make sure that prices stay stable, that they don't go up too high and preferably not too low either. Money supply and interest rates are decided. That's what national banks, including the National Bank of Japan, do as well. It supervises that banks are safe. It checks on banks so that consumers' money is safely in bank accounts. An important point is that the central bank here works independently from governments. So the government of different states, but also the leadership of the European Union, say the European Commission, they cannot tell Madame Lagarde what to do about the money. Her job is only to protect the currency, to protect the money, to protect the euro, not to do what governments tell her. The single market, well, 27 countries share a market, means also freedom of choice. And there's the 4 freedoms of movement for every European, for every EU citizen. The freedoms of movement is in goods, in things you trade, in things you buy and sell, in services, which can be bought and sold, in people. People have the freedom to go anywhere in 27 countries they like. And then also money. Money can circulate freely without government interference inside the 27 countries. This over 10 years, more than 10 years, has led to significant reductions in the prices of many products. Because now consumers have a choice. They don't need to buy something in their country. They can buy it in another country. Especially things that have become especially cheap is airfares. Low-cost carriers are much cheaper than in Japan, and also phone calls, which is having a handy a Keitai cell phone costs about just half of what it costs in Japan. Also, making international calls inside the European Union is much cheaper. The freedom to move obviously is very important for citizens. You can decide in which of 27 countries you want to live, to work, or both of them. You can of course live in one country and work in another country if it's close enough that you can commute. There are no police or customs checks at borders between most EU member states. It's different in times of the COVID-19 pandemic, I have to say. Then, if needed, controls can be strengthened at the EU's external borders, like it happened during the refugee crisis of 2015, when suddenly about 1 million refugees from Africa and Syria arrived in Europe, or during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, when freedom of movement had to be restricted. The Schengen Agreement also allows for more cooperation between police forces from different EU countries, and you can buy and bring back as many goods from your travels as you want. You can buy your stuff anywhere in the 27 countries and don't pay any customs or duties. Here's the example of mobile telephoning roaming costs. Roaming costs, that occurs when you are in one country and want to call somebody in another European country. And if you look here, pre-2007, downloading data on your cell phone when abroad was €2.50, I think, 250. Oh no, that's just the comparison. And it has come down all this until 2014. So the costs of telephoning abroad, doing SMS, downloading data it has become really cheap. If the telephone companies in your country are too expensive, you can sign up with a company from another country and get a better deal, which means that prices will come down everywhere eventually. Another aspect of freedom to move is you can very easily go abroad to study in other European countries. In fact, the program, which is now called Erasmus Plus, is one of the biggest success stories of the European Union, because every year about 400,000 young people from European countries go to other European countries to study for 1 semester or 2 semesters at a university, or go into vocational training or any kind of educational measure. That means that about 10% of students in some European countries will have done Ryugaku. 10% of all students. It is millions every year that have spent some time studying abroad, and the idea is to get to know other countries, other languages, and to build your personal network of friends in many countries. The good news is there's also a branch of Erasmus, which is called Erasmus Mundus. That's for non-EU students, including Japanese people. It is possible to apply to a European Union Erasmus grant here in Japan, and then study at a European university. If you're interested in that, check out what the EU delegation in Tokyo has to say in Japanese language. There are three key players in what I would like to call a European triangle. Power inside the European Union is divided between three institutions. I will start here at the bottom, the European Council. The European Council is the voice of the member states. 27 states are in the European Council. It has a president, which is this gentleman, Charles Michel, from Belgium, and he is coordinating the meetings. At the top level, the presidents or prime ministers from all 27 countries meet. But there's also meetings between the ministers of, say, foreign affairs, of defense, of agriculture, of education, whatsoever. And they coordinate their policies, they come up with ideas. The other, or the second side of the European power triangle is the European Commission, which may be called the EU government. It is headed by Ursula von der Leyen, who is from Germany, the president of the European Commission. This employs the most people. It's really like a government. It sits mostly in Brussels, in the capital of Belgium, which is the capital of the European Union. And they work on policy measures. The Council has ideas, and the European Commission tries to put these ideas into practice. And the third side of the power triangle here is the European Parliament, the voice of the people of Europe. It's headed by a gentleman from Italy right now called David Sassoli. The Parliament also sits in Brussels, but every month for 1 week they go to Strasbourg in France, so it has actually 2 seats. The Parliament obviously is elected by the people from member states. If you are a citizen of one European country, you can vote every 5 years and then have an assembly, and they have the right to challenge the European Commission's proposed laws, to check on the budget, to make sure the money is spent well. This is a summit at the European Council. So here you have the heads of 27 governments or states. You might recognize here, is this Mr. Michel? Charles Michel. I'm not so sure from when this picture is. They meet at least 4 times a year, which is pretty often. They set the overall guidelines for EU policies. Here again, you have the triangle here is more like a square now. You have the Council, European Council of Ministers, and on top is the European Council of Presidents and Prime Ministers, who meet for summits and who are then the big institution. The European Commission, that is acting like a government, and the European Parliament, that acts as a brake and controls what the other institutions do. The Court of Justice here, that's independent Court of Auditors, that's people who check whether the money is spent correctly. The European Central Bank is also independent. Then we have the Committee of the Regions. Just a short explanation, there's 27 national states, but there are many more regions. For instance, the Basque people live in 2 countries, in Spain, in northern Spain, and in southern France. So there's a Basque region which comprises people from France and from Italy. And those people's interests are being looked after by the Committee of the Regions. The European Commission, as I said, the European government has 27 members. They're called commissaries, Actually, they are like ministers, more or less like ministers. Um, we have here the president, well, like it's like the European Prime Minister, Madame von der Leyen on top, and then you see the flags, one from each country, and each has a different job to do, like a government minister does. You also see there's a lot of female ministers, um, almost as many as male. The European Union tries to promote female participation pretty actively and aggressively. And you see the colors here, these people are from different political affiliations. They are from the European People's Party, which is conservative, center-right, the Socialists and Democrats in red, which is center-left, the Greens, there's a green person here, and so on and so forth. We move on to foreign policy. The EU doesn't have a foreign minister. The job is called the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security. It's a gentleman from Spain named Josep Borrell. He is coordinating EU foreign policies. He manages EU foreign affairs, security policies. And you can see here in a G8 summit, or is it G7? G7 summit. The European High Representative for Foreign Affairs is also involved. This is the predecessor of Mr. Borrell, obviously, meeting here in Japan. Is that Miyajima, isn't it? However, there's structural problems in EU foreign policies. National states maintain their own foreign policies. National states have not given up having their own foreign ministers and do a foreign policy that foremost serves their own interests. The EU foreign minister, the high representative, cannot speak for the individual states, so his or her role in world politics gets smaller. And the problem with EU foreign policy became apparent just this month, on April the 6th, when Charles Michel, you see here, this is Charles Michel, the President of the European Council, and Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, they visited President Erdogan of Turkey in Ankara. And Erdogan is a very tricky partner, very difficult summit. Please have a look at what actually happened here. Right, did you see what happened? The president of Turkey only prepared 2 seats, one for himself and one he prepared for Monsieur Michel, the president of the European Council. Madame von der Leyen was not offered a chair. She sat on the sofa facing the Turkish foreign minister. However, the president of the European Commission is higher ranking than a foreign minister. Actually, the president of Turkey should have prepared 2 chairs because Michel and von der Leyen have the same rank. They have a rank like a head of state or a head of government. So you could see that Madame van der Leyen was not content. She was arguing. In the end, she sat down, but it was a diplomatic disaster. This was a loss of face because the European Commission was shown as not functioning properly. They have not one person that can speak for them in foreign policy. They have two, and the president of Turkey chose to not treat the two as equal. This is a structural problem of EU foreign policy. As long as national states are the real forces and players in foreign policy, this is probably not going to change. We now have moved on to the European Parliament, the voice of the people. The Parliament decides EU laws and budget together with the Council of Ministers. They supervise all of the EU's work. It's a fairly large parliament. You see 705 members, and they come from all member countries. Obviously, there's large countries and small countries. You see the largest countries have more members than small countries. Germany is the largest, so it has 96. And that is followed by the second largest, which is France, 79, Italy 76, and after that comes Spain 59 and Poland 52 people. So in the council, every country has the same voice, but in parliament, bigger countries have more members of parliament. The parliament is divided into political parties. You can see here we start with the largest group, which is this one. It's this one. It's the Christian Democrats or European People's Party. Here you have the center, and this is center right, so moderately conservative. The second largest group is here. It's the Socialists and Social Democrats, who are center left, left of center. And then we have other important groups. The liberals and centrists are, well, centrists, maybe slightly to the left of the center, people with politicians with liberal values. Another big group is the Greens. The Greens who work together with regional parties. So smaller parties from various countries. Other groups include here on the very right the Eurosceptic conservatives. So these are very conservative politicians who probably don't really want the European Union to go any further. We also have a far right, which is actually against the European Union, which includes parties with authoritarian tendencies. Some would say fascist tendencies. So these people are considered as troublemakers in Parliament. Then we have another group here on the far left. This is actually, well, communist parties from several countries, communist or post-communist parties from the left. So the European Parliament really represents the values and the political affiliations of people across Europe. Inside the factions, members are from different parties from different countries. So this is really cross-national. The Parliament does not work along national lines. One word about the European Court of Justice. You may have guessed, it has 27 independent judges. One is from each European country. They rule on how to interpret EU law, and they make sure that European countries apply the European laws in the same way. So if there's trouble occurring in a member state and the courts in the member state do not solve this, people, but also businesses can appeal their case to the European Court of Justice and get a judgment from there. Judges are 27 are from 27 different countries, and it sits in Strasbourg. Actually, this is a place where individual citizens very often win against their own governments. Their own governments are treating them unfairly, and courts in their country do not recognize that. Then you can go to Europe, and in many cases, citizens' rights are upheld against national governments. How about working for the European Union? In Brussels and in Strasbourg, it's a big employer. The Commission alone employs 23,000 permanent civil servants, they have fixed positions, and also 11,000 temporary workers. So 34,000 people working for the Commission. The other EU institutions like Parliament or the Council, all taken together, employ another 10,000 staff. How can you become a civil servant there? The permanent civil servants are not decided or sent by member countries, but you can apply individual for a job in Brussels. There's open competition, so there's jobs are being published and applications accepted, and then there's interviews, tests, and people are selected. That makes sure that there are people from all EU countries, and they people that are independent from their government. They are just citizens of Europe. Well, and all this often, especially before Brexit, British newspapers criticized this is very expensive. The civil servants earn too much money. In fact, every EU citizen pays 15 euro, that's about 1,800 yen per year, to pay the salaries of European workers. Please decide for yourself whether this is a lot or not. And actually, staff were reduced by 5% recently. Still, the image persists. They are called the Eurocrats, EU bureaucrats, and do not have a very nice image, especially among more conservative, more right-wing people across Europe. Well, if you have questions about the EU, obviously I only touched a few aspects and very generally today. You can contact here Europe Direct on the internet. It has lots of information centers. You can get information in many languages or in Japanese. There is the delegation to the European delegation of the European Union to Japan, which is more or less EU Taishikan. It's in Tokyo. And they also do have a website, also in Japanese. You can get materials from there. That leads us to the final slide for today. Thank you very much for following this online lectures. I hope technology worked out well. You have homework to do. Please write an email to me at that address until April the 27th. So you have almost 1 week. I want to know 2 things of you. Please write to me. First, tell us about about this online lecture. Could you understand well? What could be improved? What could be made better? Any comment upon online lectures are welcome. Then, second question, very easy. What's your first impression of the EU? What do you think about what you heard today? Hint, you may compare it to Japan. So you get a contrast on several points, but you may not. That's really up to you. You don't have to write a very long mail. Several sentences will do. And finally, about the language, please do not write in Japanese. No, please write in a European language. We can accept English, German, French, Spanish, and Italian. I'm afraid we don't read Russian or Finnish. It has to be one of these 5 languages, please. Well, that's it for today. Please stay posted for next week's lesson about European history, again, also on YouTube. Thank you very much and goodbye.